Hello and welcome to Snyk Live. I'm your host, Brian Clark, a developer advocate here at Snyk, and we have a fun show in store for you today. It is about how to get started in cybersecurity and learning from folks in the community that have got a jump start into their cybersecurity career. And this is part of our Snyk Ambassador program. So, really quick, if you're not familiar with that, Snyk Ambassadors is about folks that are passionate about security as Snyk is, and they want to share their interests and expertise and excitement within their community. So, if you're interested in joining the Snyk Ambassador program, we have a link that we're going to share with you in the chat right meow. Boom, there it is, snyk.io/snyk-ambassadors to learn more about that. But as part of this program, we have folks from the Snyk Ambassador community join us to help teach us about stuff that they are knowledgeable in and their backgrounds and experiences. So, without further ado, to help us learn more about all of this stuff and getting started in cybersecurity, I'm going to bring on somebody that was a former Snyk Ambassador and is now a senior security advocate here at Snyk. First up is Sonya. Hello, Sonya. Good to see you.
Hey, hi everyone. Good to see you too, Brian. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thanks. And next, we also have Filipi, who's a Snyk Ambassador now, who's also helping us learn more about this as well. Hey, Filipi, how you doing?
Hi, Brian. I'm good. How about you guys?
Good. So, how do you get started? Is it like a one-word answer? Is it really quick and easy and we can just end the stream right now? Or is this like, where do we go from here? Just kidding. First of all, I want you all to introduce yourself. So, Sonya, why don't you go first, give people a little bit, let people get to know you a little bit more, and then we'll have Filipi go next.
Sure. So I'm Sonya Moisset. I'm a senior security advocate here now at Snyk. As you mentioned, I used to be an ambassador before that. But regarding my career, I used to be a business consultant for 10, 12 years. Then I moved to the tech industry when I was based in South Korea. This is where I actually moved to the tech industry, like learning everything self-taught entirely. And then moving to London, I actually moved to cybersecurity industry. So yeah, it's been like 10 years now. So yeah, this is my journey.
Nice.
That's it.
Awesome. All right. And Filipi, how'd you get? Tell us a little bit more about you.
Yeah, sure. My name is Filipi Pires. I'm a Brazilian, but I'm talking from Portugal now. I'm a Snyk ambassador, and now I'm working actually as a security research. And I'm starting my career in cybersecurity in 2015, actually, in a big company, and to learn about defensive stuffs. And after that, I moved to offensive stuffs. And now I'm researching for threats. It's very interesting and looking from how the codes works and how we can find threads inside of the code. And yeah, this is my life in cybersecurity.
Nice. That's awesome. And very briefly, myself, while I consider myself a security enthusiast, my background is mostly in development, but over the course of my career, I've found myself drawn towards learning more about application security and then helping teach that to my fellow teammates or just the community in general. And that's how I'm here today. So let's talk about getting started, right? So, like, what are maybe some of the first questions that come to mind for folks that are interested in getting into cybersecurity, depending on where they're coming from? Maybe, some people might be coming from a development background, some people might be coming from a completely different industry, and that kind of thing. So I guess let's hear your stories first, and then we can maybe talk about some of the things that we think now that you're in this cybersecurity position that help brings new people into the teams with you from your experiences. So first of all, about Felipe, you go first here. Tell us about how you got into cybersecurity position that you're in that you just mentioned today.
Yeah, I have a very interesting and curiosity history because I was a salesperson actually. My background, I'm graduated in process
Oh,
management, so nothing about the cybersecurity, nothing about technical stuffs. I was a salesperson, and I started my career at Dell Computers, and I sell product actually. And after that, I moved into the technical things because I remember in the past my idea when I decided to move in my career actually when I moved to the technical things to work with infrastructure, server storage and networks and something software. And when I decided to moving for this specifically technical area, my idea is to just a simple movement. And after that, after 5 or 6 years, I returned into the sales career. But
Oh.
when I start to learn about technical things, simple like this, I fall in love for the technical things. I don't know why, probably I'm crazy, but I really like these things. I don't know what happened with me in that time, but I changed. And in 2015, I received the opportunity. Actually, I have a very nice guy that invests in me to give me actually the opportunity to work in cybersecurity. And it's the other thing interesting, when I started to work in the cybersecurity as a system engineer, I imagined in that time that I knew what is exactly antivirus or virus, but actually I didn't know. When I started to learn about security, I really understand that, Filipi, you don't know nothing about cybersecurity. So this is a good point here, because if I got the success in 7 years, so everyone can go, from the cybersecurity. It's not difficult. I was a salesperson, so now I'm working in cybersecurity, with another guys in cybersecurity. So if I got the success, so everyone, can go.
Yeah, and that's very encouraging to hear, and thank you for sharing that. We'll dive deeper into that in just a moment, but Sonya, how about you go next? Let us know how you got started in this space as well.
Sure. So I think just going back, like, how did I start in tech first? Because I moved from tech to cybersecurity. So when I was young, like in the mid 80s, my mom gave me a Japanese computer called MSX from the brand Sonya, and this is where I had like my first exposure to video games, a little bit of programming.
Nice.
So I've always been like programming since I'm young, but I've never thought of programming as a career path. So fast forward, there's the MySpace era. So I was like dabbling with like the CSS and HTML, and you thought that you were like the best webmaster because you could like change the website and everything. But I was also like dabbling with PHP, with MySQL, like building some small websites, but still not thinking about like having a proper career in tech. So I did a business school, so I don't have a computer science degree. Attended a business school in Paris. I've been working as a business consultant for 10, 12 years. Then I went to South Korea, where the companies, so I had to learn Korean there because I was supposed like the visa and and other stuff. So, and I'm always being driven by challenges. So I thought, I've learned Korean. Let's find like something a bit more technical, another challenge. So, and I've always been interested in tech, and I was looking at all those articles saying that you could learn programming in like 3 months. I was like, what is this nonsense? But yeah, let's see, let's delve back into it. So yeah, I've decided to move to tech, because also the companies I was working with in South Korea, they were asking me to build their website and maintain their website. So it wasn't only for the front end, but it was only the back end, like hosting, maintaining all of that. So I found that I actually enjoy it more than my business consulting side. So so I was like pushing more on that side, and at the same time, Mr. Robot, the series, was screening. So it has nothing to do with the relationship that Elliot has with his father. Not gonna spoil on that, but it was more. No, it was more like, I don't know, like programming, hacking, like this kind of things. And I was also thinking, is this the career path that I like to pursue, like to continue in that sense? So yeah, as I said, I'm entirely self-taught. So I went back to what's sort of like free code camp, just to go back to basics, and just going from there. And when I found a job here in London as a software engineer, I was sitting next to the security team. So I kept asking them a lot of questions about the tools, the processes, what they were doing. I found it really cool. And they were sounding a little bit cheesy. I was like, I found cybersecurity really cool. I think they were fed up in a sense, and they asked me if I wanted to be a security champion, so I can like bridge between the developers team and the security team. And I said, yeah, why not? Because this could be like a good experience for me to actually like have a sense in the security world. So I started like that, and then the CISO asked me if I wanted to join the team full time. And yeah, this is where I started as security engineer, and from there, yeah, I did a few roles in security. But yeah, that's my journey.
Very nice, very nice. I love to hear that, and I'm realizing now, Sonya, that you and I have a similar, kinda, like, story or journey that we got into in that regard, because for me, the way as I mentioned earlier, I was a developer first. I still consider myself a developer, um, but then I started getting this passion where I was, like, a passion around trying to bridge that gap between our security team at the company I was with at first, because there was just this gap, right? This disconnect where they would just have these policies in place that say, "Hey, you gotta check the box here, and are you checking the box?" And that was like, they're taking your word for it a lot of times, but then they would do other testing and stuff on their own, right? But, and I'm a developer, I'm like, I don't know what that means, what's cross-site scripting?" Or, "Yeah, I think I'm defending against that," you know? And I'm like, "I really need to dive into this and understand this more," and then start sharing what I learned about that with the rest of my team. And I became like this liaison, or like I like how you put it, a security champion too. And then that led to me becoming a security architect, or an architect with a focus on security on an architecture team at the company I was in at that point. And that's how I started there. All right. So thanks everybody for sharing that background and how you got started. It's very interesting to hear. Before we go further though, I want to remind folks that are watching this live right now, you can drop your questions in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them on the stream. And this is a reminder for folks that are maybe watching this right now, the recording, that you should tune in to the live session so you have a chance to interact and be part of the live stream. So with that in mind, I want to say hello to some folks. I see the chat going quite a bit since we started here. We got Robert Tables here. Does Snyk Ambassador program give us diplomatic immunity? No, no, sir. But thank you for that question. We also have Gerald in the chat, and then Lilo over on YouTube. Thank you for being here. Appreciate that. And I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Vishwas. Thank you for being here as well. I think our first question that we have is from Gerald. Is there any such thing as fake it until you make it in cybersecurity? What do you think? Do either of you feel that way? Is there any such thing as fake it until you make it in cybersecurity?
Actually, I don't know. Maybe the thing about fake is more about maybe it's a joking, but I think it's the new people that I'm learning about the security or cybersecurity is some people using tools and executing scripts, and during 1 year starting as a junior, and during 1 year go to senior in one specifically year. So it's not possible
Wow.
to be a senior. You start as a junior in 1 year. You need to go. You need to learn more. 1, 2, 3, 4 years, or I don't know, 5 years to be a good, uh, a security guy. Let's say this way. But if I talk about the fake, maybe it's because of the explosion about the cybersecurity. There's many opportunities for jobs. I think the only thing that I think about the fake in cybersecurity is about the like a script kit. The guys using tools to executing some scanning actually for the offensive approach in the codes or in the software, and spread the message that the guys are the security guy, but it's a fake. It's a different, and it's coming to the other question from Visha maybe. So so how we can start to learn about the tools and technology in cybersecurity, for example. And this is a very interesting and important thing that I like to talk, because the tools can help you to understand where is the vulnerabilities in the code, but you really need to understand how the tool works. when you execute specifically tools, for example. So what kind of information the tools use it when they need to perform some scan inside the code? What is the basis of these tools? You need to understand the basis. So, for example, let's talk about the application security. So to understand how the code can, appear specifically flaws or vulnerabilities, you need to understand what you can build in specific applications. How is the flow of this application? You need to think how a developer thinks. Is a different. So that's the point here. Usually the people like to just executing tools and see the results, but how much deeply you go in the tools and the basis, so it's a real security guy.
Gotcha. Sonia, anything from your side of things? Your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I think instead of faking, I think it's more about getting the right info or asking the questions to the other team. Like if when you work in an organization, you'll work with the network team or the SRE team, and you just like understand better the project that you're working on, and then try to get the information. But I found that worked well also for me. I applied the same methodology that when I moved to tech, so which is that I've actually attended a lot of meetups, so cybersecurity meetups, to actually build up this knowledge base on this industry. I've also trying to build up my network. So if I had like a specific question, I could ask one of my peers if they've actually met with this particular issue or problem, like how they'll tackle that project. Obviously, without sharing too much details, but it's just a general idea of it. And yeah, I was just like just trying to scale up also. Just learn a bit more through organization like OWASP or the CNCF, like depending on which area you're working on. So depending if you're working on SOC or GRC or DevSecOps, you have like courses or blogs or tutorials. Also feel like hands-on like pet projects just to build up those skills and get a little bit more confidence. So you don't feel this like fake it until I make it or imposter syndrome. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You both gave excellent answers, I think, there for the fake it till you make it. And then also this other question that I know Filipi started answering as well from Vishwas on how do you start learning about the tools and technology and security? And also, how do you research about the new tools today? So, and I know, Sonia, you mentioned OWASP. I personally credit a lot of my background and like my skills to OWASP organization, OWASP.org for folks that are not familiar, stands for Open Web Application Security Project, who is immensely helpful for me during that stage that I was talking about before when I was trying to bridge this gap between our security team and our development teams of like understanding what it is that the words that they're using, the acronyms they're using, and how it applies to me as a developer. OWASP is definitely a huge resource out there that's still fantastic today. Um, that I would mention. The other thing I would add though to this though, in terms of, and I think Felipe, you were kind of touching upon this too a bit. Um, is that like not so much the tools that are going to help you in this space, but just getting a different mindset. So for me, like what helped is having that developer background. We not always. So I say this kind of jokingly, like, unit testing. It's like this recurring joke in development space where you should be unit testing your code, but you don't ever really do it, right? In a lot of, I mean, some people are better about it than others, but it's like an ongoing kind of joke that people joke about, but it's not really a joke. It shouldn't be. It should be serious. So we're supposed to test our code to make sure that like each function or method that we implement is behaving the way we expect it to behave, right? But then on top of that, that kind of helps you to take it a step further. You need to think about how is it going to react to things that are outside the scope of what you expect. And that comes into this mindset of like, how do I break this thing? Right? How do I try and make it do something that I wouldn't expect it to do, that I wasn't planning on it? Because when you're a developer, you get in this, it's very common to fall within this tunnel vision of like, well, one, you're getting judged and measured on whether you're delivering features or not. That's typically how like performance reviews go. So your main focus is on like deliver, get it done, right? And just happy path. But the reality is you need to to get a holistic completion of done for that feature that you're adding is like, how do you try and break it, right? How do you think outside of that initial thought process, the initial flow to, um, you know, crack this thing, right? To make it break as much as possible. And that's what led to me was like, we can save this for a moment. Maybe there's a story time that we can do, but like just trying to hack on things, ethically, and getting things to break that are not, that aren't expecting you to put in the input that you put in. And that's what led to me, um, I feel like having this passion around that led to me wanting to learn more and therefore then maybe learning some tools that are out there that help support those things that I learned as well. I know that was a very long-winded answer, but anything to add to that while I'm looking at some more of the chat messages that we have? I know we have more questions coming. Felipe or Sonia, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I think also a good way is to what I've did is to collaborate through open source products.
Mhm.
So I was leading on an open source project called Pride in London here in London, and they had nothing. It was just an evergreen project. So because I was interested in DevSecOps, so I've actually implemented their own pipeline and secured their project, which is good because it's like giving you an opportunity to upskill and to also try a lot of different tools. And because it was an open source project, all of these tools were technically free, which is good to like test a lot of these tools and see what kind of feedback you could get. But also coming back to the tools that you implement, it's not only implementing the tools, is also what to do with the results, how you triage, and also how you get the message to developers and the education piece, which is probably more important than just implementing the tool, because you can just implement the tool and give them to the developers, but if they don't understand the context or if they're not trained or educated through like the results that you're getting, there's no point of implementing these tools.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I definitely can resonate with that too. That's where some of my frustrations came with our security team was they're very hesitant to teach us about the hacking side of things, how to break things. And if you don't know what you're defending against, how can you expect me to try and defend it or at least have an idea, right? So,
Yeah, I think it's quite easy to do this usually with like lunch and learn sessions where you can demonstrate, like you can take a lab from Hack the Box and just demonstrate one of the vulnerabilities, and it's better for the developers to see something concrete, or they can impact the business instead of just like saying the list of the OWASP top 10 and there's no context, it's just jargon for them. So yeah, just having those like live examples and impact through businesses is way better for developers to understand that.
for sure. And
Yeah.
you mentioned
Uh,
hack the boxes. Just a minute, Felipe. I'll let you get in there. I know you want to add your point on this too. Hack the box you mentioned, Sonia. That's hackthebox.com. I'm assuming a massive hacking playground type of thing people can use, right?
Yes, for beginners, I would recommend try Hack Me when you feel a bit more
Okay.
confident, because there's a lot more like a step-by-step walkthrough and it's more like hand-holding. And when you feel like a bit more confident, you can move to Hack the Box. The Hack the Box also have like an academy for beginners, but yeah, I'd say if you find it a little bit daunting, try Hack Me might be a better place for beginners.
Nice. All right. I shared those links in the chat as well. Felipe, you were going to add something?
yeah, actually, I will just reinforce the OWASP point that you mentioned. It's about the important thing that we can contribute. Everyone can contribute for the project, and not only that, but the open source, as Sonia mentioned, and that's a very, very, very important. And now they are starting about the Kubernetes security. It's very interesting, and they are waiting for some people to help in the project, and not only those to improving the skills like a hack the box, try hacking, but the people can find. I think the Snyk has a Snyk Academy, and not only Snyk Academy, but another interesting is a Portswigger Academy. It's a very, very nice other platform to learn about how the application security works and more offensive approach actually to understand how the flows, the vulnerability works. And the last point that I would like to mention is about the hacking, because I'm advocating a very interesting project called Hacking is Not a Crime. It's this very nice. I'm an advocate of this project. It's the concept behind of this project is to talk about how the hacking thinking, or how is the hacker, because usually the news and the TVs need to find a bad guy, when some exploitation happen or some leaks happen, so they need to find one person or organization. Usually they call hacker, but it's not a hacker, it's a threat actor, it's the cyber criminal. That's the point here. So the hacking or the hacker concept is how you use in your life, how it is a lifestyle, how you see the application, how you see technology. When you build something using your creativity, this is the hacking concept. Of course, you can use in this to broken things, but in the end of the day, we will help the companies to improve their security. That's the point here. Just to mention that about the hacking is something like this.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you think about it, the people are always sharing like life hack tips, right? And that's not considered bad. That's considered good. You're doing automations or things that'll like improve your life, right? From a life hack. So why? But actually, you bring up a good point that I vaguely remember. I think somebody like by the technical definitions, like hacking isn't actually the bad thing. I think cracking is the technical term that is more of doing something malicious, right? When you crack something versus hack on something. Do you all hear of that or, like, have more can confirm or deny that?
Yeah, actually, this is the weekend on. I think I already heard about this, and when I started my career in security, about the cracking, hacking, the two different concepts. Usually, the cracking is more about bad things, let's say this way.
Mhm,
But in the end of the day, so if, for example, if you are a lawyer and you make a, a criminal things, and after the policy goes to, and the police actually goes to, and you go to the jail, so you are a criminal. After that, you change it. You lawyer one person, but after the crime, you are a criminal, right? A
mhm,
criminal guy. So that's the point. So when you do something bad in cybersecurity or in IT or whatever area, you are a criminal. That's the point. And but the hacking is different. So how you use in your creative mind, that's the point here. But again, so it's a difficult, because usually the TV, using this concept, the hacker, explore the vulnerability, the hacking, attack the company with ransomware and something like this. But we will change this.
this is a hacker, right? Ooh.
Yeah, this is
In the dark with the little
the
spotlight on, right? No, I yeah,
yeah.
that's a good point to bring up. Alright, so, keep the questions coming in the chat, folks, love to see it. I see the next one in my view here is from L. King. Who it's a like a two-parter almost. So as someone who doesn't have a computer science background, I always find myself hesitant to apply changes because I am paranoid. My changes could create security leaks. How do I get past this? And then they go on to say as well, or what common parts of your server how do you check often to make sure it can't be breached? Thanks. To kind of summarize this, and the way I'm going to put it in our notes too, is basically like how do we how do we build confidence in the security of our software is kinda if I could summarize that question, and Sonia, why don't you go first on this one?
Well, this isn't like for a company. If you're working with different teams, the responsibility is not only on the security team. It should be on like all the teams working on this specific project. So let's say the network team, the SRE team, um, and yeah. So based on that, I would say it also depends on the implementation that you have. So you have like a testing development environment where you can actually apply those changes at first, and you see how it reacts, and it should mirror the production environment. So when you build up that confidence that you think that the server is potentially fully secure, hopefully, then you can
Mhm.
move those changes. You can copy it to production. I would say this could build up your confidence. Obviously, this would like not be 100%, but you would feel a bit more confident to push the changes to production without breaking anything if both environments are mirrored.
Nice, nice, I like that. Felipe, anything to add from your perspective?
Actually, is almost the same. You need to have a flow, basically. You need to test, and after you solve this, you can apply in production. But you need to have a flow. You need to understand how the let's talk about the software development life cycle. You need to understand the flow, and to protect the software and the application. So you need to put in the specifically sensor in this flow, and you need to have the test environment, or staging, whatever name you prefer use. That's the point here. But the difficult time is when you working, for example, in a startup company. We started to create a product, sell the product to receive an investor, and specifically time you remember, oh my goodness, I need to look in from the security. So let's come. back and let's see how this works. And
Yeah.
You could also potentially implement it through using infrastructure as code, just to make sure that you replicate everything into all your servers and all your infrastructures, just to make sure that everything is hardened the same way.
Excellent. And thank you, L King, for that question again. Hopefully that helped answer your question. If you have follow-ups for that, feel free to drop them in the chat. I see next up in the chat, we have a question from Robert Tables. How long were you in the industry before you started having mild panic attacks about security of your own systems and accounts? Filipi, why don't you go first this time?
actually, I don't know. Actually, I don't know. I don't know if I understand the question. So maybe Sonya can start.
Okay, sure.
I'm thinking.
But if I could elaborate on that, I think it's more it's kind of joking around. Robert Tables is going for there, and it basically is like what maybe a better way to put this to help you out, Felipe, is like when was like the first time you felt like you're in this career you felt like your stomach drop of like, oh no, this is a serious thing that I need to worry about, and you started
Okay. No. So I got it. I think it's my first implementation actually. So my first implementation when I worked in 2015. So it's my second day, and this is very interesting because I basically applied in specifically fire policy, and I stopped the application my customer basically, and I
Oh,
saw,
okay.
man, it's a big company in Brazil, and I thought, oh my god, what happened now? So I stopped the applications, and it's very trouble. I think this is the first time. I think it's my second month that I was working in this company. My first implementation,
Wow.
and I enable apply. Actually, I applied a specifically policy in a firewall, and I blocked all those connections. So this is the first time actually.
Nice.
But after 10 minutes, after 10 minutes, I think 10 minutes, it's a big time. 10 minutes, I got to solve the problem. But 10 minutes, I but I solved. In the end of the day, I solved the problem. But this is the first time that I had a problem.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that.
The
Sonya,
panic.
do you have a story to share about that?
I guess, well, my previous experience, because the size of the security team was really small compared to the organization. So yeah, you would panic for everything. So when you're receiving the pen testing reports, when you discover that actually a server has been implemented with default credentials, those the sorts of things which are pretty classic in the in companies. I think you just go with the flow. I think what is missing is the education piece. So you don't need like to panic. It's more like, so there's no like wrong or right. Like you need to educate people. Like for example, when you do a phishing attack for awareness, if a user is clicking on it, like you shouldn't blame. It's actually just explain what is bad, like what should be the process if this happened, because this was in the context of awareness exercise. For example, if you someone implement default credentials, just explain why what could happen, and how easy it could be to compromise a server using default credentials. So I think it's more like around the education piece, and not just panicking and wasting time around that, but just focus on education. Yeah.
Absolutely. Love both those answers. And basically from both those questions and both the answers for each question, right? So recapping, Elking was asking about, how can you, build your confidence in the software you're delivering? And then Robert Table's asking about, what was your first experience with like a serious incident that came up and how did you respond, that kind of thing. What I'm hearing from that is you do your best to prepare ahead of time, but you're not going to be able to do everything, cover the bases on everything because there's so many unknowns that are possible with when it comes to software and technology, right? And then the other half of that is like, how do you respond? Like being ready and prepared in responding in a positive way to learn from that experience, right? Am I kind of summarizing fairly well for both of you?
Yeah, I mean, you can still have like playbooks and workflow implemented. You you won't be able to know like all the assets that you have within the organization, so you still have those unknowns areas. But yeah, as you said, So something like the best behavior and best practices, try to reduce this attack surface, makes you feel a bit more better.
Yeah. Cool, cool. Filipi, you have something to add there? So you come off mute.
No, actually, yeah, I agree. I agree completely. Because so if you thought about, for example, a big attack that happened in 2017 called a WannaCry, so it's not a 0 day, you know, it's a Microsoft vulnerability. And if you see about the WASP top 10, one of this top 10 is misconfiguration. So we need to have a specifically reaction. So when you're suffering something, just a simple like this. So you can try, of course, to protect the company and helping the systems, but you need to respond when some incident happens. So this is, I think, in my simple opinion, it's a simple. Of course, it's not too simple, but it's simple because probably will happen. So you just need to respond.
Yeah, I hear you. It's a simple in that you need to respond, but it could be complex and in the moment fairly overwhelming. But there's a lot to learn from those things, and if they don't happen, then we won't. I mean, we wouldn't be where we are today if people hadn't made mistakes and learned from them to help prepare us for these types of things too, right? All right, next up in the chat, and I'm loving it. Keep the questions coming, chat. We have Gerald who asks, "Are there some tools that articulate well together for beginners? If you had to pick 3, what would they be?" Either one of you want to go first for that in terms of tools that help beginners getting into cybersecurity careers?
I would say probably for offensive, probably the Linux box. And also if you do like try hack me and hack the box, this could be potentially a good duo using the tools that are implemented within the Kali box. This could be potentially one, with like Burp Suite and others, and Map and all of these like classic tools that we're using for pen testing. But if we're talking about a company, I would say it depends on your project. We're not talking about tool. It's more like what the tech stack are you using, what the workflow that you have. Is it integrating well with your CI/CD pipeline? What kind of server are you using? So the tool would depend on the project. There's like you could do like a top 3 tools, but actually it doesn't fit the project you're working on and the infrastructure that you have within your company.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yes, perfect explanation. Because if you think about offensive security, you can use Kali Linux and many tools there, or Parrot OS is another, Unix platform. If you're working, for example, a more analysis, you can open, for example, Nux. So it's another platform. You have many tools there. So if it depends of the area and the project, as Sonya mentioned, and so, but usually when you have the opportunity to work an open source project, it's a very, very interesting. And if you can, work together with any specifically academy training like Hack in the Box or other platform like this, usually they have a specifically walkthrough that you can using. They suggesting some tools that you can using this. So for beginners, it's interesting because you can go like a journey step by step.
Gotcha. And again, just to try and summarize too here from both of you, it sounds like it depends, right? Because certain tools are good for certain jobs, right? And thank you again, Joe, for that question. Next one up that I'm really excited for this one for both of you. I hope you're prepared. Lilo has a real tough question here. What would you do differently if you had to start all over again in cybersecurity? Who wants to go first?
I was happy for these questions, and
Yes.
I actually, the first thing that I will do is to learn about the programming language and how the developer think. This is the first thing that I will change. So I will, in 2015, I will start to learn about, Python, Go, C, C++, how much programming languages I could use. So I will learn more. This is the main thing that I will change.
Excellent. Sonia, how about you?
I think I was lucky when I transitioned from business consulting to tech. I actually did a few hours then, so I thought it would be good to learn like all programming languages, which is like a waste of time, like instead of focusing on one, which is good because I had exposure to all of these programming languages. But yeah, so the lessons that I had from that is for cybersecurity. I focus on a few things. So I had a little bit of passion for DevSecOps and cloud security, so like focus on those two areas. So I don't like look at other areas, even if it's tempting to have a look and like learn everything. But yeah, time is limited, unfortunately. So yeah, I try to focus on the specific areas, and there's a lot to cover with cloud security and DevSecOps. So yeah.
You are so right, Sonia. It like even just from a developer perspective, right? There's even if you focus on like one programming language, there's so many possible things to learn within the space of that programming language that there's just like not enough time in a lifetime to potentially go through all of it and really know it in depth, right? And it's so hard to
Brian,
avoid that temptation. What?
are you talking about the JavaScript ecosystem? Wink, wink. Yeah.
Yes, definitely in JavaScript, but well, one, I'm not ragging on JavaScript because I like JavaScript. I use that as my primary programming language nowadays. However, that could be applied to other programming languages too. To be honest, it's probably more prevalent in the JavaScript space, though. I'll definitely give it to that.
But this is a good point, Brian,
Yeah,
because it depends of the area that you would like to work in cybersecurity. If you
yeah,
like, for example, more analysis or something like this, it's very important to know about the C++, .NET.
hmm
Because we were working and about with reverse engineering, to look about the assembly. But if you are, a developer, you're working with application, it's Java, JavaScript, Python, PHP, and other things like this, or other tools to integrate. So that's a good point. So it depends of the area, basically.
yeah. And that you remind me that's general advice because a lot of times when I'm doing my own live streaming or just talking with folks in the community that are new, maybe they're in college or they're looking to switch careers and to be a developer, they always ask where should they start, and well, one, I always preface it with like just pick something and run with it really because like just get started because a lot of times what ends up happening is you get into this what's I've heard called analysis paralysis. You have too many humans. If you present humans with too many options, they kind of just get stuck and they don't know which one to choose, right? And it's tough, and especially with development, there's a lot of options. But even careers, there's a lot of options in the career. So my first initial thing is just like find something that piques your interest and run with it, get a taste for it, and it's not impossible for you to stop doing that and switch to something else and try diving deeper into that. So that's my first thing that I always do. And again, this is sparked from your answer. The other thing that I always dang it, now I've lost my train of thought. Oh my gosh, my brain. I'm getting old. Um, what's the other thing that I tend to do when folks they always ask me like which one to choose essentially, right? And that's when I say like, well, think about what kind of career or job you want to get in. Do you want to do web development? Do you want to do embedded systems development, right? That'll help you choose what programming language to focus on and learn first and give you, you know what I mean? And because otherwise, if you just learn any programming language, but it's not really gonna if I learn how to do JavaScript development, it's not necessarily I mean, it's still helpful, right? But it's not gonna be as helpful as if I started to do an embedded systems kind of career. Let's say I want to work on hardware, right? It might be more helpful for me to learn like, I don't know, what's good, like you said, C and C++, right, to work on embedded systems. Or I was gonna think like Verilog for doing like electrical engineering and logic based stuff, right? So those are the two things. Thank you for bringing that up, Felipe. You reminded me. Just in general, that can be applied. That's developer, but in cybersecurity, there's more, right? Like, so I guess let me pose the question to you both. What are the different areas within cybersecurity type of careers that you've seen that are options for people to take a look at and explore? Because maybe people don't know. They might just think, "Hey, I want to get into cybersecurity. What are some of my options out there to like help me pick from?" Right? Let's present them with options so they can have analysis paralysis.
Actually, we need to make another live about that. So
Oh, okay. Do we?
that is
All
impossible.
right.
No, actually, I received this today. I received a question on LinkedIn. It's very interesting. So, Felipe, I'm starting cybersecurity. So, where is I should start? So, man, what do you like? The first question is, what do you like? You like what you like to do in security. What are your passion actually? So you like the offensive things, you like to defend, you like to investigate things, you like the rules. So you need to answer some questions. So after that, you have some options actually. And usually the offensive security is more like, how can I say that, is more, brilliant, is more shiny, like a threat actor, so like a bad guy, so explore things. Usually this is the most wow, I work with offensive security. uh, some people don't like to work a defensive team like a blue team or other, because they usually needs to manage defensive tools.
Mhm.
So we have many options like application security. So to understand how the software works, how is this flow, how you can apply the security during this software development life cycle. And like I mentioned, that so you can work with a malware analysis, has a malware analyst, looking from the threads, understand how the malware works, how the APT groups works. APT is acronym of the advanced persistent threat. Usually they have a groups of the cyber criminal responsible for spread different attacks or any specifically target. Usually is a target. They focus on a specifically target. So to understand how this specifically these threads works. So we have many possibilities in cybersecurity. We have a governance. So the people that like to looking for ISOs and rules, policies. It's not too good to me, by the way. But anyway, it's an important part, of the security.
Sonya, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, to echo what Filipi said, also, so yeah, first find your interests in cybersecurity. If you're more like offensive, defensive, if you like writing policies, this kind of thing. So find your interest or your niche. And it also depends if you're technical or not technical, because there's both. Because from discussion that we're having now, people might think we need to be like super technical for
Mm.
cybersecurity, but there's also space for people who are less technical. So as mentioned with the GRC, with governance, risk, and compliance around policies, around user awareness, like this kind of like areas like less technical that what we've been discussing previously.
Yeah. No, I think you bring up a good point there as well. And that got me thinking for folks that to help people figure out some of the roles too, a possible option here that I share with like developers is look at companies that you might want to work for and what open positions they have and see what those job listings describe as like required skills and that kind of thing, right? And that can give you a great starting point of like what are the things you should pursue in your own education as you're trying to, whatever background you're coming from, whether you're a developer or a completely different industry, that can give you an idea at least looking at the job postings of like what is required of these types of roles, especially like maybe entry level or beginner level roles, right? And then you can help, work backwards. It's reverse engineering, right? There we go. Doing a little reverse engineering for the roles that people want. Trying to see. I think there's some other questions, but I think we've answered some of them from the chat too. Actually, really quick, Emery, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, was just wondering, they heard us mention Burp Suite. If maybe I think, Sonia, you might have mentioned it at one point. If you can maybe elaborate on that a little bit. And before you do that, I wanna call out Filipi. Thank you so much for, because you said APT, and you then paused to explain what the acronym was, so props to you for doing that. Thank you, because we wanna be as beginner friendly as possible, and I didn't know what that acronym was either, so, alright, Sonia, go ahead. What is Burp Suite?
Yeah, sure. So it's a tool to perform security testing of web applications. So yeah, if you're doing pen testing exercise, you can use the Perp Suite tool to test your website. There's also the OS app, which is doing the exactly same thing. So when we're talking about tools, yeah, you don't have like one tool specifically for one kind of exercise. You can there's some alternatives, but yeah, Burp Suite is usually used for testing websites during pen test exercise. And you can also download it for free with the Burp Suite community. You don't need to to pay to have the well, you need to pay to have the full-fledged features, but yeah, you can use the community.
Excellent, thank you for that. And then just browsing the chat a little bit more. So, Lou Loba has a question around how to build a security career with a focus on the cloud, right? So we're talking in general, picking out careers, but now we have a specific one, cloud security. How do you start with that to get going for a career in this space? Anybody want to take that one? It's okay if you can't. Like, if we don't have the.
I mean, there's different angles for this one. You could focus on one of the big three. So AWS, Azure, GCP. And once you master one of them, you can actually jump to the other one. It's just the lingo, the vocab that change the service names. We can also do something like a little bit more niche, like learning more about like Alibaba Cloud or IBM or others that are less, they're in that part of the top three. So you can have this added value on your resume. Or you can also learn like two of them, like having AWS and Alibaba, or GCP and Azure, like you can mix and match. So this would be like one angle. But I would say if you have previous experience in security, you can still like lift and shift and leverage that experience within the security cloud. What you've learned on premise, you obviously you're not going to copy paste exactly, but you can shift some of this experience to the cloud environment.
Yeah, if I can add something, is I think the good point here is to understand those bases. So so the difficult is to the people like or prefer to apply the security concepts, or to try apply some security in whatever platform they like. So to do is they need to first understand how the cloud works. So it's very important, for example, like AWS, as Sonya mentioned, for example. So you need to understand how you can manage things inside of AWS, to do certifications in AWS, to do certifications in Azure. So after you learn how these things work, so you can, increase your knowledge in security, you apply this security concept inside of the cloud. It's the same case when you're looking from the application security, for example. So you need to understand how the application works. And after that, you can apply the security concept inside of this. Because in my opinion, the big fault is I like security. I want to work with security. I just focus on security, but you don't understand how the cloud works. So how the provider works. So how the application works. So how the software works, how the infrastructure works. So how you can apply, how it's possible you apply the security when you don't understand how the infrastructure works, So that's the point here.
Excellent. Thank you both for those answers as well. I don't see any other questions in here, but to kind of recap and see, how before we start closing out too, as we're getting towards the end of the session today, or the live stream rather. The recap, we talked about intro, both of you talked about how you both got started, advice on folks that are wanting to spin up and learn more about these types of things, and how to maybe look for positions that they might like. Are there any other things that you'd like to share with folks that are looking to get into cybersecurity career that we maybe haven't touched upon?
Yeah, I would recommend to attend meetups or conferences. Obviously, it was a little bit difficult with the pandemic, but you can still like attend online some of the big security conferences, like Black Hat or those kind of conferences, just to get a little bit more exposure. And if you're still wondering which area you're interested in, that would be a good opportunity to learn a bit more on some of these the different disciplines. So yeah, attending meetups and trying to create your network through those is also a good thing. And also it's a safe space where if you want to ask questions during meetups, because you have like your peers and people that might be more prone to answer your questions.
I love that. I can't even emphasize. I want to double emphasize that on for folks that are watching, how important it is to build those relationships and be, you know, establish that network that you can. Felipe, anything to add from your point?
No, it actually is. I agree completely with Sonya. So the conference, the meetups, it's very important, and to participate in communities, it's very, very important to learn, because it's a opportunity to exchange knowledge. If you're a beginner, it's a very opportunity to learn. Even you are a beginner, you can teach something as you are learning. So it's very interesting because the community is important, and so meetups, it's a part of the one of these events in communities. And of course, we have another big events, but it's opportunity to keep in touch with the people. And I think Gerald asked about the books. So we have many books on the. I'm a partnership of the package. fact, it's a big company. Know about they have many books in different fields that you prefer inside of cybersecurity. We can choose whatever you want, and about the program language, about security, cloud security, offensive security, and so on and so on. And but it's part. If I can suggest something again, like Sonya and Brian mentioned, that it's be part of community and stay inside of the events in conference.
Yeah. The only thing I would add to that, because I know sometimes it can be when folks think of being part of the community and going to events, they might, it might be a bit of a challenge, right? Because some of the conferences cost like lots of money just for a ticket. And so what I would suggest there at least is, start off small. Like there's local meetups that tend to be all over the world, right? That are usually free. And the cost of entry is just getting yourself there somehow, right? If there isn't a meetup or type of like a collaboration event that happens in your local area, you can think about potentially starting one up yourself and then, using online resources to connect people that are within your area that might be interested in joining in on that kind of thing too, right? You could spin up one yourself. Um, just to give some suggestions in case, you don't have the means necessarily to do that, right?
Yeah. Another suggestion, so if I can, is not about books, but actually books or everything, is on GitHub. You can find many awesome, awesome DevSecOps, awesome also offensive security, awesome cloud security, many resources on GitHub. So we have many possibilities. So it's very interesting because it's a part of the someone created and the community maintaining those repositories. It's very interesting and useful.
Also, to come back on the conferences, if you don't if you can't afford the tickets, usually they publish the videos after,
Mm.
so you can still rewatch it on YouTube. Make sure that you don't miss this content as well.
Yes, how could we forget? Live streams in YouTube, right? Live
Yeah,
streams in YouTube,
exactly.
great resource for learning.
Yeah, we have a very nice guy. I think the name is Brian Clark or something like this. So
Ooh, me? No. But Felipe, you mentioned the awesome that and GitHub. GitHub, there's a common trend that started in the developer space there that's like the awesome lists, right? I think that's kind of what you're referring to. And I found very quickly the
exactly.
awesome security repository that's out there that has 9.1 thousand stars for people bookmarking it basically. So I recommend that for folks to
And
check out.
by the way, I have some I have some repository in my GitHub. I
Oh
fork,
yeah.
of course. Yeah, so you can see the people want can go in my GitHub, Filipi
Yeah.
86, and we
If you
have
want to
many.
send that link to me, I'll drop it in the chat for people to check out.
Yes, I send you, no problem.
Sure.
I think also one last tips for beginners or those who want to break into cybersecurity is don't hesitate to write blog posts. If you feel you're a little bit too shy or introverted to do videos, you can still produce materials like written materials. So if you're working on a hack the box, you can write a walkthrough on it and just publish it on LinkedIn, just to have this like work on your branding, just to show your expertise to the peers and potentially to potential recruiters in your next job. So yeah, it's also important to work on that and just publish also like blog posts on things that you're learning along the way.
Yeah, Sonya, that is huge. I also wanna double emphasize that one, because I know I think you're right, like, it can be intimidating to folks to do that, but the more you put your work out there, the more hireable you become because people can use that, and I've seen people, like, live stream themselves programming, they've landed jobs because of that, right? Because they can, like, stream through the interview process, they don't even have to go through a typical interview process because the hiring manager or team can just use those resources that are out there publicly available to them to see how that individual works, and it's just it's a huge thing, as you can tell by the way I'm, like, speaking about it, that I think it really, in today's day and age, helps a lot of folks, whether you're a developer or in cybersecurity and technology in general. Share your work as much as you feel comfortable. So find that medium that's comfortable to you. Sonia suggested writing blog posts. Maybe you like making videos without maybe you on camera, just record your screen and talk about it. Whatever you feel comfortable doing, just find what it is and put your work out there, and it'll I guarantee it'll help you.
Yeah, I think it's another thing interesting. So I send you the GitHub link to you, Brian.
Got it. Thank
I
you.
usually when I some presentations about my research, one of my recommendations is exactly this point. So when you do some research or something, you can, but my suggestion is you should describe all those steps that you did, because in the end of this research you have a content, so you can present your manager, your lead. But on the other hand, when you describe this, you learn about these steps. So if you are made some investigation, for example, you can understand what kind of technique the attacker is using to bypass your security sensor, let's say this way. So when you describe this, you have the research to send your manager and to publish the blog post. And this is very interesting. So I had opportunity in the past when I made some interview. When the manager talked to me during the interview, basically he asked me many things about my blog posts. When I
Nice.
published 2 or 3 articles. Actually, he read 3 or 4 articles that I published, and he asked me about the specific articles, about the technical things that I published there. So basically, it was very easier for me explain, because I made the research, so I know what I knew what I need to explain. So it's a research for acknowledgement, for your job, and for your future.
Awesome. Love that. That's awesome to hear. All right. I think we'll definitely, we could keep going. I believe both of you probably feel that way. We could keep going on and on about this and share so much, but we have to call it somewhere. We can maybe plan to do some more, maybe about what you were talking about, Felipe, of describing all the different careers that are possible in cybersecurity. Um, and we can plan to do that in the future. But before we go, Felipe, where's the best place folks can get in touch with you if they want to stay connected beyond just the live stream today?
Yeah, usually I use a lot 3 channels. Actually, is a LinkedIn is one of this channel. Another is Twitter and my GitHub, because usually on Twitter and LinkedIn I like to share the many different open source tools and the news and research and talks and events that I've been participating in. The GitHub, usually I publish the project that I've been working or some research. But basically, the people can find me, and I have a small web page, but there you can find some articles and talks. But if you like to talk with me, it's a LinkedIn on Twitter.
And is it the handle for that is what's on screen for you at Filipi
Yeah.
Pires? Okay, cool. And Sonya, what about you? Where can folks find you online?
I'd say LinkedIn. Yeah, it's mainly on LinkedIn.
Okay, great. Excellent. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time and helping provide helpful insights on your experience and background in cybersecurity. Appreciate you being here. And, we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're going to drop you both off. Any closing words?
Cybersecurity is cool. Just give it a try.
Give it a
Join the
try.
team. Yeah.
All right, stick around, Felipe and Sonya. We'll end things in just a moment here. All right, folks, thanks so much for joining us. If you're tuning in, you're watching the recording later on, we really appreciate this. Those of you that were here live asking your questions, they were amazing. Well done, everybody. Props to you, pat on the back. Thank you for bringing such awesome questions. Hopefully, I'm pretty sure, but I'm going to say hopefully you got some value out of today's session, some great answers, I think, that our folks here between Felipe and Sonya provided for you all. If you want to see more of this, right? Be sure to drop a comment below, like the video, that kind of thing. Subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/SneakSec, SEC. And on Twitch, twitch.tv/Snyk Live. We'll have more. In fact, little housekeeping. Next week, we have another live stream just for you. Maybe you're interested in this. It's about bringing order to chaos. It's going to be yet another Snyk Ambassador driven live stream. So I know that's very vague, but it's about systems reliability engineering, SREs. So if that type of thing, we're talking about careers in this space. There's one of those titles that are probably, I'm going to learn more about it. I don't know too much about it, but we're going to find out next week. So if that interests you, we're going to be right back here at 2 p.m. Eastern time. Do the time zone math wherever you're on the world. There's also calendars and links to the events. You can follow the Snyk Twitter account, twitter.com/. Words are getting hard at the end of a long stream like this. Twitter.com/SneakSec. Sneak SNYK SEC. All right. That's all I got for you folks. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good rest of your day wherever you are in the world. We'll see you next time. Peace out. Bye-bye now. Have a good one. Adios.